Hi, greetings. So people have asked me, where are your Gorean videos? So time to make another one and give certain Gorean men another reason to rage about how I am clothing myself. Because it seems that for some people, the clothing of women, especially then men here, for some men, the clothing of women seem to be their main focus in life. Who am I to deny them that pleasure? Anyway, the topic I want to discuss is basically free companionship and what it is in the books and what it is for Gorean lifestylers and how that tend to be different from the books. Don't usually find a lot of videos or posts online about this because it's not as glamorous as the slaves. So, let's discuss free companionship. Now, in the books, free companionships are a marriage that a free man and a free woman enter into. And yes, let me just get that out of the way. While there isn't any same-sex marriages on Gore, we don't live on Gore. I see absolutely no problems with two gay Goreans entering into a free companionship. I'm sure there's some Goreans that will raise an eyebrow at that. I'm not among them. They're free. They can do whatever the fuck they want. As long as they live by honor, nobody has any business getting into their love life. So, that out of the way. In the books, free companionships usually were a sort of business deal. Usually it went something like that. My family has a very noble name and are considered elites in this city. However, we have fallen on hard times. How can we get more money? Family 2. We do not have much of a name. We do, however, have money crawling out of every orifice. How shall we use this to better our social standing? And family A and family B meet and says, don't you have a daughter? And then family A says, yeah, indeed we do. And then family B says, well, this just so happens we have a son. Can you see where this is leading? Yeah, it's generally arranged marriages done by the families of the people entering into the free companionships, and sometimes by people in those, it's arranged by the people in those companionships themselves. And they generally wasn't really relationships of love. Just like you could see that most marriages in ancient Rome, basically most marriages up until the recent era were arranged in some way, shape or form for either monetary, social status or protection reasons for the people involved. So what free companionships gave, in addition to basically whatever monetary and social standing reasons they gave, is that they gave a free man the possibility to have children with a free woman, and also to have a partner and confidant that could stand by his side. However, for the most part, of course, since these were arranged marriages, there weren't really much love between the parties of a free companionship. Eventually, many of them learned to care for one another, and free companions were often very loyal and very fond of one another, but they often weren't loved. So usually, at least if the family had money, the man in question would then find slaves that he actually loved and spend most of his time with those. And sometimes the female companion would also find herself a slave to buy to fill that void. So basically, while For poorer families, there was less of a monetary arrangement than for richer ones, but even so, it mostly was a practical arrangement where the relationship between a slave and her master tended to be, it could be one of just pure pleasure or just also practicality. I need someone to do the dishes. But very often that was, if there was a love slave, it was one that was actually one of love, at least from the master's point of view, since the slave didn't have much choice in the matter. So yeah, that's how it works in the books. It's basically a free companionship is basically modeled around the marriages of older cultures, Rome, Greece, and then we're talking about the ancient variants of these, Old Norse, and you can see very much similarities with that. If you look, if you read about the relationship between a Roman and his wife, you would usually get a pretty good idea about how a free companionship work in the Gore books. So, how then is this different in real life Gorean lifestylers? First of all, I have never heard about a free companionship being arranged in real life, because we don't really do a lot of arranged marriages nowadays, in the West at least, now do we? So that part of it is usually out of the picture. So generally speaking, a free man and a free woman, or like I said again, a free man and a free man and a free woman and a free woman, and the combination of thereof, decide that they like one another, that they are compatible in when it comes to what they want out of life, and then they go into a companionship ceremony. Now, companionship ceremonies are a little bit different than the marriage based on Christian ideas that are used. Most of the places, I mean, even getting married at the churches are sort of based around the Christian model. Free companionship ceremonies, however, are done by the parties promising to stay together for 1 year. In the books, this is explained with Goreans having so long lives that it would be completely unreasonable for them to promise, since Goreans are very concerned about keeping their word. It would be completely unreasonable to say, we are going to stay together for the rest of our lives, because you don't know if you'll grow apart eventually. So instead, you hold a big ceremony, just like a wedding, and you make, and it's basically a pagan hand fasting. The most descriptions, and also a way that most Goreans I know that are companion do it, is that they will hold a ceremony. Whoever officiates it will then bind the hands of the bride and the groom together, and they will swear to be together for a year. Then each year on the day of the companionship ceremony, the parties hold a private ceremony where they either decide to split apart or continue the relationship for another year. And I actually like that. I like that a lot. And this is a part of most pagan hand fastings, actually, where usually the parties swear to be together for a year and a day, or for as long as love lasts, because nobody knows if something will happen, so they will grow apart in the future. And it's far better to promise that I will stay together with you for a year, or I will stay together with you for as long as we both shall love one another, than to swear to stay together forever and then either end up having to break your words or being miserable. So I really like that part. But anyway, two Goreans have these arrangements. Some do it very privately, some have a big shindig, and then they live together. And generally speaking, Gorean free women are submissive to our men. And to be quite honest, there isn't a huge difference in real life between a free companion, a female free companion, and a kachira. Because the Gorean lifestyle is based on being consenting, and most slaves are not treated as slaves in the books. They are treated far more like submissive girlfriends, and it's the same thing with free companions. It has more to do with your personal ideas and philosophy than it really has to do with anything else. I know a lot of Goreans that are married to their slaves, and they have a romantic relationship, and while it is a power exchange relationship, the slave definitely is not a cattle slave from the books. And the same with a free companion. The etiquette change a little bit. The slaves will call her mistress. Well, sometimes. There's a lot of slaves that are not too concerned about being polite to free women, but that's another discussion. But generally speaking, they should then be polite to the free woman. And generally speaking, a female free companion is more like a sub, if you look at it from a BDSM point of view, than a slave. And they have a more tendency to have more to say in the relationship. But generally speaking, if you sat two Gorean couples next to one another, and one was a master and a slave, and the other was a free woman and her companion, you possibly you could see it with the slave wearing a collar. Then again, there are some goth bitches of us that wear spiky chokers and show cleavage and doesn't follow the clothing ideas in the books, so you couldn't be completely sure with that either. So you wouldn't really know the difference. In the books, the difference is huge. A free woman is a citizen. She has full citizen rights. She has full rights of inheritance. She has the right to leave the relationship. Once that year has passed, she can leave. Yes, the companion has considerable authority over her while that relationship lasts, but if she is mistreated, she can decide at the end of that year that, bye. She has the right to own her own money. She has the right to own property, houses, slaves. She is the mistress of the household. And the Gorean free woman was afforded considerable rights and prestige, while a slave was a pet animal, the kitchen help. In, however, a real-life relationship, very few people treat their slaves like that. Yes, the master has authority, but generally speaking, slaves within the Gorean lifestyle, in most cases, act and are treated far more, like I said, like submissive girlfriends, and the same really are free companions. So it is more an internal thing. I have been both a slave and a free companion, and outwardly there's not a lot of difference other than basically the etiquette change of being able to tell free assholes to shove it, which I do with the most marvelous delight. Other than that, my life is pretty much the same, but of course the internal aspect of it is hugely different. because there's a philosophy to freedom. And a free woman will have that. So while it's on the outside is very similar, a free person, man or woman, will have a very different outlook on life than a slave. But yeah, so what is a free companionship? It's a Gorean marriage. Simple as that. And for most real life Gorean lifestylers, it works pretty much like a 1950s type marriage. That's the most common. Where the man has the authority and is the leader of the household, but the wife is listened to, respected, and protected. Some of us have married legally as well in a church or at a judge's office, while some only have the Gorean ceremony. That varies. But generally speaking, you have a free companionship when two free people recognize one another and decide to walk at one another's sides for a while. And the thing is, a free woman who is companion to a man, she doesn't desire to compete with her companion. She is quite happy to be a woman. She is quite happy to let the man lead. But at the same time, she is free, completely responsible for her actions, and are afforded the rights and privileges of freedom. And she has her own honor. And while to a certain degree, a man could be seen as being responsible for the conduct of his companion, basically when I go out and talk with other Goreans, my behavior reflects on my companion, for good or bad, because the companion do have some considerable authority to command his companion, and can even physically punish her. But at the same time, I am responsible for myself, and my conduct affects my own honor. For where a slave doesn't have an honor in herself, her honor is her master's honor. And how she behaves is basically, she is his thing, a part of him, as it were. So her behavior affects his honor, but she doesn't have one on her own. Free companion completely has her own honor. Well, of course, a man who has a free companion that runs amok will be looked down on for not controlling his woman. She will also soil her own honor. So yeah, that is basically what a free companionship is. The closest simile would be pagan handfasting. So if you are interested in how to do this in practice, I would suggest picking up a book on pagan handfasting rituals and how handfastings are held, because basically that is where John Norman has gotten the idea for the companions. Is basically one part looking at ancient cultures and how the relationships between married couples were there, and part two looking at modern pagan handfastings. So if you read about that, you will know basically how it works in the books, and you can adjust that then to work in our modern world. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and blessed be.